My name is Claire Whitaker, and I'm 33. If you'd asked me last month what could shatter a family faster than a scandal, I would have said nothing. But then came Sunday dinner. My mother, Marianne, set the table like a magazine spread, linen napkins, floating candles, her roast chicken that smells like childhood and forgiveness. Dad, Harold, poured wine and announced that this year's hydrangeas were the best in a decade, which in our house is code for let's keep the peace. My younger brother, Evan, 29, bounced his knee in rhythm with the clock in the dining room, tick, bounce, while his fiancée, Lena, 27, swiped through venue photos on a tablet with an engagement ring too big for their budget and too hopeful for mine. I took the chair with the wobbly leg, the one that keeps you alert. I always pick the seats that don't let you sink in. We made small talk, a coworker's dog, the weather on the coast, traffic on the interstate. Then the air tightened. I didn't see the turn, only felt it, like the ocean pulling back before a wave you don't yet know will knock you flat. Evan set down his fork and took on this rehearsed, formal tone I'd only ever heard when he was auditioning for something. Jobs, forgiveness, money. Claire, he said, Lena and I have been talking about the wedding gift, and we've decided what would be meaningful. I smiled because smiles are armor. Great. What were you thinking? The beach cottage. For a beat, the house itself went quiet. The grandfather clock forgot to tick. My mother's candle flickered like it was embarrassed to be here. I laughed, because surely this was one of those family jokes that are a little mean, but mostly harmless. Sorry, I said, when no one else laughed. I thought you were kidding. Evan leaned forward, elbows on wood. My father refinished the year I left for college. You're successful, he said, enunciating each syllable as if he were building a case. You have your city condo, your job, your investments. The cottage is just a getaway for you. For us, it would be a home, a fresh start. Lena nodded, lips pressed in a straight line that said she'd practiced this in the mirror. My parents watched me like ushers waiting to open the door I was supposed to walk through. It's a $400,000 property, I said very gently. You're asking me to give you a house. It's not about the money, Evan said. It is always about the money. It's about family, he went on, about sharing success. Mom folded her hands on the table. Claire, you have so much. Would it hurt to help your brother start married life right? Dad added, you barely use the place. 3 weekends this summer? 3 weekends because I've been keeping the job that keeps the mortgage, that keeps the cottage alive, I didn't say. Out loud, I inhaled, tasted rosemary and dread. I'll give you a generous gift, I said, but not the deed to my house. Evan laughed, a short, sharp, wounded sound. This is classic you. Hoard what you earn so no one can take advantage. Evan, I said softly, I helped you 17 times in 5 years. Car repairs, 3 months' rent, no strings. Helped, he echoed, slicing the air with his fingers. Loaned, and I paid most of it back. 30%, I said before I could stop myself. Lena's voice slid in, sweet and steady. We're not asking for charity, Claire. We're asking for a wedding gift that shows you support our union. I support your union, I said. I'm not giving you the house. Silence swelled, heavy as a thundercloud. The chicken cooled. Candle wax crept. Evan's face flushed a color I remember from childhood tantrums, only back then there was a nap and a juice box to fix it. Keep it, he said. Keep everything. But stop pretending we're close when you care more about cedar shingles than your brother's future. He stood so fast his chair scraped, chalk on slate. He'd rehearsed this, I realized. Maybe they all had. Lena's eyes were glassy, a performance on the edge of tears. For us, it would mean stability, safety, a place to raise. She stopped herself, looked down. I felt something cold crawl up my spine, a premonition disguised as a draft. Mom reached across the table for my hand the way she used to when I was 9 and scared of thunder. Just think about it, she whispered. You don't have to decide tonight. There's nothing to think about, I said, and my voice surprised me with how steady it was. I'll help in other ways, not this. Dad's jaw clicked, the sound he makes right before he says something he can't take back. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic would have been flipping the table, running to my car, driving straight to the cottage to hold it like a shield. Instead, I stacked plates because manners are also armor. The roast chicken stared at me like it knew it was being wasted. When I left, the hydrangeas looked like little explosions of blue against the dusk, and I thought, remember this exact shade. You will need proof later that you were there and you were sane. In the car, the aftershock started. I replayed each sentence, like tapping a bruise to make sure it still hurts. Did I miss a memo where people give houses as wedding presents? Is there a secret rule book where the child with spreadsheets owes the child with guitar strings a mortgage? On the drive home, I texted Noah, my boyfriend, because he is the one person who never makes me feel transactional. You will not believe what just happened. He called immediately. Breathe, he said. Tell me everything. I told him. There was a pause, then, what the actual... He stopped himself. You're not wrong, Claire. You're drawing a boundary. That's healthy. Healthy feels a lot like lonely when your own mother sends guilt in links, which is what happened the rest of the week. Articles about the generous sibling, stories about helping family build generational stability. Mom sent a photo of Evan and Lena touring a venue. They look so happy despite everything. Despite everything began to trend in my head like a headline. Dad called mildly disappointed, which hurts worse than yelling. Evan posted a quote about knowing who your real family is. Friends forwarded screenshots like weather alerts. Storm warning in your last name. On Thursday, my doorman rang up. Your brother and his fiancée are here. I closed my laptop on a half-written code review and told him to send them up, because optimism is a lifelong bad habit of mine. They entered with a measuring tape, a notebook, and paint swatches. It was so absurd I almost admired the commitment to the bit. What is this? I asked. We're heading to the cottage this weekend, Evan said. We need the keys to really envision things. Envision what? Our future home, Lena answered softly, the same way you'd tell someone they left their headlights on. You're not getting my keys, I said, and you're not going to the cottage. Evan glanced at Lena, then back at me. Mom and Dad have a spare, he said, from the hurricane last year. My mouth went dry. I heard the ocean again, the pullback before the wave. You are not going to my house without my permission. It's going to be our house, Lena said, and this time she didn't bother to sweeten her voice. No, I said, it isn't. Evan exhaled, long and theatrical, then played his next card. I didn't want to bring this up yet, but Lena's pregnant. Time hiccuped. The measuring tape glinted like a lure. Lena's hand went to her flat stomach, a gesture as old as humanity and as persuasive as any courtroom speech. Congratulations, I said automatically, because decency is muscle memory. That doesn't change my answer. We need stability, Evan insisted. A real home. Your niece or nephew doesn't entitle you to my deed, I said, and I hated how calm I sounded. Calm makes people think you're cold. Lena's eyes filled for real this time. You're heartless. I felt the old script tug at me. Be the big sister, fix it, sacrifice. But I kept my feet where they were. I've offered help. You want only one version of help, the one where I lose everything I worked for so you don't have to. They left with the measuring tape rattling in the bag like a snake. When the elevator doors closed, I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of my door and listened to the quiet on the other side. The life I have, the life I built. The life that suddenly felt like evidence in a trial I never agreed to. I didn't know it yet, but lines had been drawn that night like chalk on asphalt, and people I loved were about to step right over them while insisting the lines weren't real. 2 days before the elevator doors closed on Evan's rattling measuring tape, there was coffee. Public, neutral, and safe, the way people choose hospitals with good lighting when they plan to break your heart. He texted, "Can we talk? Just us. Clear the air." I said yes because I am the kind of person who believes in versions of people that don't exist yet. Our usual spot was half busy, the steam wand shrieking like a warning. When I walked in, it wasn't just Evan. Lena was there, smiling with the fragile brightness of someone who has already decided what the right outcome looks like. "Claire," Evan rose, opening his arms like a diplomat greeting a dignitary, and not a sister he'd ambushed at dinner. We hugged that stiff hug siblings do when they're pretending there isn't an ice flow between them. I wanted to apologize, he began when we'd sat and my latte was cooling untouched. Sunday was not my best delivery. I was nervous. Okay, I said. I watched his knee bounce. Tick bounce. The metronome of Evan trying to sell an idea. Lena leaned in, palms around her mug as if the heat could infuse certainty. We've been thinking about what you said, about the cottage being a $400,000 asset. Right, I said carefully, waiting for the word unreasonable to appear. You're absolutely right, Evan added, exhaling. It's not fair to expect a gift like that with nothing in return. Relief touched the edge of my rib cage. Maybe this was going to be a conversation, not a siege. I appreciate you seeing that. So, Lena said brightly, pulling out her phone like a magician revealing a dove, we made a plan. She swiped to a spreadsheet. Numbers marched in neat, impossible rows. We can do $500 a month, every month, until it's paid off. I let the math into my head because numbers do not gaslight you. 400,000. $500, $800 months. 800 months. 12 Vineros, 66.6 years. We would all be dust. Their grandchildren would be Venmoing me. In 1992, I said quietly, give or take. Family discount, Evan said, attempting a grin that didn't reach his eyes. That's not a discount, I said, and I kept my voice soft because anger makes people stop listening. That's a token. It wouldn't touch property taxes, insurance, basic upkeep. We'd handle maintenance, Lena jumped in. Evan is great with... Salt air eats houses, I said. It eats hinges and pipes and paint and decks. Last year, the cottage needed $15,000 in repairs. Not upgrades, repairs. I sipped the latte, which had gone from art to mud. And what about interest? Evan frowned, genuinely puzzled. Interest? Between siblings? Between lenders and borrowers, I said, which is what you're proposing I become. The little spreadsheet stared up at us, innocent and damning. Around us, the coffee shop kept being a coffee shop. Milk frothing, cups clinking, someone laughing too loud at something that wasn't happening at our table. I tried a new angle. There are other ways I can help. A down payment on a starter place, help with a nursery, a generous cash gift for the wedding, time at the cottage for a weekend, for free when I'm there. Boundaries don't mean stinginess. Evan's mouth tightened. He had come for my yes dressed in a payment plan's clothing. So that's a no. It's a no to losing the house I worked for, I said. It's not a no to you. He looked away and the bounce of his knee sped up. You always make it about effort and merit, he said. Like my life is a commentary on your moral superiority. This is about a deed, I said, not a sermon. Lena put her hand on his forearm and studied me with something like compassion sharpened into judgment. You're scared if you give up one thing, we'll take everything. I'm not scared, I said. I'm informed. Something in his face shut. Talks had ended. Closing arguments began. You won't even try to meet us halfway, Evan said. Halfway between a house and not a house, I said, is not 67 years at $500 a month. It's a different plan. They stood as one body. The chairs scraped. A couple at the window glanced over. We were that table now, the one with the hushed fight. We'll figure it out, Evan said, and the words were a promise to Lena, not to me. With or without you. Preferably without the with, if with means my name on legal documents you submit without asking, I said, not knowing yet how sharp that foreshadow would cut. Outside, the air had that wet chill that lives between winter and spring. Evan hugged me again, but it was a formality. Lena didn't, but she smiled with a small, brittle mercy. We'll always be family, she said, which is what people say right before they redefine the word. After coffee, there was a lull, the way the ocean goes quiet right before the rip current takes you in the wrong direction. My inbox filled with normalcy, sprint planning, a QA ticket about a bug no one could reproduce, Noah texting a photo of takeout dumplings with the caption, emergency provisions. At night, I scrolled through property tax forums, because that's who I am now, the girl who armors herself in statutes. Then came the elevator, the measuring tape, the paint swatches, the reveal of a spare key in my parents' possession like the Chekhov's gun I didn't know had been hung on the mantel last hurricane season, Lena's hand at her stomach. The word pregnant. The way it didn't change the math or the deed or the history of effort that led to one set of keys and not another. After they left my apartment, I did the modern thing. Typed, "Am I heartless?" into a search bar and received 4 million opinions. Then I did the old-fashioned thing. Called Noah. "Come over," he said. "I'll be here." He opened the door in a t-shirt and the kind of face that is a place to rest. I fell onto his couch and told him the whole thing. Now, with the pregnancy card played and the parental spare key looming like a storm front. He listened the way good men listen, without fixing, without flinching. "You don't owe anyone your house," he said finally. "You offered help. They want tribute." "Mom keeps sending articles with titles like The Generous Sister," I said. "Dad keeps reminding me I went to college on a partial scholarship like gratitude is a lifetime mortgage." Noah tucked my feet under a blanket I keep at his place. Gratitude isn't the same thing as forfeiture. I laughed, surprised by it. Put that on a pillow. I will, he said. I'll cross-stitch it like a Victorian aunt. We watched mindless TV, the way you watch waves to remember how to breathe. Between episodes, my phone lit up with my mother's name. I let it ring. Then I answered, because I am also the kind of person who picks up, even when she shouldn't. Claire, she said without hello, her voice already threaded with hurt. Evan told me you refused to let them look at the cottage. They don't need to look at anything, I said. There's nothing for them there. It's just a building, she said, and I felt something in me recoil. That house was weekends with a crowbar, the first time I changed a trap under a sink without calling a plumber, late nights on the floor with YouTube videos and stubbornness. It was ramen and rent-controlled apartments, and not going on trips when everyone else did. Family is forever, Mom added, her favorite biblical proverb rewritten for modern guilt. If family is forever, I said quietly, it should outlast a no. She went silent in that way that means she's shaping a new angle. Think of the baby, she said finally, your future niece or nephew. I am, I said. I'm thinking of the story they'll hear if their parents teach them that other people's property is a solution to their own choices. She hung up. Mom, who narrates recipes over the stove like she's on TV, hung up. Noah put a glass of water in my hand, like I might forget how. You did fine, he said. Fine feels like a four-letter word, I said. The week limped forward. I told the doorman not to admit anyone without my say. I called the locksmith who had changed the cottage locks last year after a sticky latch. He said he could do another emergency call if needed. I printed a fresh copy of the deed and tucked it into the fireproof folder with my passport-like talismans. Evan's social media blossomed with motivational quotes about real family. Lena posted a photo of a cramped apartment with the caption, "Making it work." I didn't respond because oxygen is a reward, and I wasn't feeding any fires. On Friday afternoon, between a stand-up and a code review, my phone buzzed. It was Jennifer, the year-round neighbor who waters the cottage hydrangeas when I'm stuck in the city. Claire, she said, crisp and teacherly, even in retirement. I don't want to alarm you, but there are people at your place, young couple. Your parents just pulled up. They're trying keys. The wave I'd felt gathering finally crested. Please don't call the police yet, I said, already grabbing my car keys, already calculating the drive, already making a list in my head. Locksmith, cease and desist language from the attorney friend, the speech I would give my parents that would break something we might never fix. I'm on my way. As I ran for the elevator, Noah's text arrived. Want me to drive? I stared at the screen and felt something warm push back against the cold. No, I typed. You stay. I need you here when I get back. Because there would be an after. There had to be. Even if what stood between the before and the after was my brother standing on my deck, smiling at strangers like a tour guide to a future he did not own. By the time I reached the coast, the sun had dropped low enough to turn the ocean into a slab of bronze. The 2-hour drive took 1 hour and 38. My fingers still ached from how tightly I'd gripped the steering wheel. Jennifer's voice replayed in my mind. They said they're family. That was what scared me most. The certainty of it. The way family can sound like a key that opens any door. When I turned onto Seaside Lane, I saw them before I even cut the engine. Evan, Lena, my mother, and my father on the deck of my cottage, as if this was a Sunday open house. A fifth and sixth person stood near the railing, a couple I didn't recognize. The woman held a tablet, the man a camera. My heart pounded so hard it made the seatbelt vibrate. I stepped out and called, "What the hell is this?" Lena looked up first, waving like we were neighbors meeting for coffee. Perfect timing. We were just waiting for you. My parents turned, guilt already settled in behind their eyes. Dad cleared his throat. Honey, don't be dramatic. They just wanted to see the place properly. See the place? I echoed. Mom, you gave them my key? It's just a look, Mom said, as if that made it harmless. You're being stubborn about this whole thing. You gave them my key. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. The quiet was louder. Evan started toward me, hands up, peacemaker mode. Don't be mad. We're not doing anything wrong. You're trespassing, I said flatly. He gestured towards the strangers. No, Look, this is Rebecca and David. They're interested in the property. We told them they could take a look. You what? I stepped closer. Interested for what reason? Rebecca smiled, uneasy. For a rental. Lena said you were turning the place into a honeymoon rental and... She what? My voice broke in the middle. This is my house. It is not for rent. David frowned, pulling his phone from his pocket. We already sent a deposit, through Venmo, to Evan. Evan blanched. Look, I can return it. You took money for a property you don't own, I said. That's called fraud. Rebecca's smile disappeared. Okay, we're leaving, she said quickly to David. They hustled toward their car, whispering, "This is sketchy," as they left. The tires kicked up sand and silence. When they were gone, I faced my family. You are all leaving, I said. Now. Claire, please, Mom began. Don't be like this. Like what? Like the homeowner whose family is trying to rent out her house without permission? Dad's face hardened. You're embarrassing yourself, and us. I'm embarrassing myself? My laugh cracked like glass. Evan, did you tell them this was a honeymoon rental? It would have helped with the costs, Evan snapped, finally dropping the calm act. Beach houses can generate serious income. You barely use it anyway. I barely use it because I'm working the job that pays for it. My voice echoed against the waves. This isn't about money, Mom cut in, her voice trembling. We're just trying to help them build a future. By breaking into mine? Lena's eyes filled with tears so quickly it felt rehearsed. We're not stealing from you, Claire. We're asking you to help. We just need stability. Then ask for a loan. Ask for advice. Ask for a chance. But don't try to take my life's work and call it generosity. Heartless, she whispered, shaking her head. You're literally heartless. I'm protecting what's mine. Evan stepped forward, shoulders squared. You know what? Fine. I didn't want to bring this up like this, but Lena's pregnancy, she's having complications. The stress of all this uncertainty is making things worse. I looked at him for a long time, trying to find the brother who once cried when our cat died. Then she should see a doctor, I said softly, but emotional blackmail won't fix a mortgage. It's not manipulation, Lena said, tears streaking now. You just don't care about family. You keep saying that word, I said. Family. Like it means ownership. It doesn't. Evan's voice broke on anger. If something happens to our baby because of your selfishness. Stop, I said, firm, cutting through the wind. Stop right there. You don't get to weaponize guilt against me. Mom gasped. Claire! No, Mom, you raised me to earn what I wanted, to pay my debts, to build something for myself. Now you're angry because I actually did it. Silence again. Even the ocean seemed to wait. The locksmith van arrived, brakes squealing on gravel. I turned toward him like a lifeline. You're here for me, I said. Emergency rekey. While he worked, Evan and Lena argued softly near the porch steps. My parents stood together, whispering. I caught fragments. Ungrateful. Just a building. Not the way we raised her. When the locksmith handed me the new keys, I paid extra for the rush service and tipped like I was buying safety itself. Then I turned back to them. If any of you come here again without my permission, I'll call the police. Mom's hand flew to her chest. You'd call the police on your own family? On anyone trying to break into my home, yes. Lena gave a shaky laugh that wasn't funny. You're unbelievable. I know, I said. So is this. They left eventually, Evan muttering that I'd regret choosing property over people. When their cars disappeared down the road, the silence returned, honest, heavy, and alive. The only sound was the locksmith's drill being packed away. That night, I stayed at the cottage. I couldn't bear to leave it empty again. I poured wine, sat on the deck, and watched the ocean move like breathing. My phone buzzed. Mom again. I ignored it. Then Noah texted, Are you okay? I wrote back. They tried to get inside, had strangers here. He called immediately. Do you want me to come? No, I said, voice shaking. I just needed someone to know. Later, while brushing my teeth, I saw my reflection. Wild hair, sand on my jeans, eyes swollen from disbelief. I whispered, You did nothing wrong, just to see if it sounded true. It didn't yet. The next morning, the cottage smelled like salt and sawdust from the new locks. Jennifer knocked gently before letting herself onto the porch. I'm so sorry you had to come down like that, she said. They look so sure of themselves. I thought maybe you'd changed your mind. I didn't, I said, but thank you for calling. She nodded. People will do strange things when they convince themselves they're owed something. That line stayed with me. When they convince themselves they're owed something. That afternoon, I called a lawyer friend, Eli, who owed me a favor. Family fraud, he said after I explained. It happens more often than you'd think. Change the locks, document everything, send a formal notice if they try again. And Claire? What? Don't minimize it just because it's family. If they weren't related to you, this would already be a police report. For 2 weeks, everything was quiet. No calls from Evan, no cryptic texts from Mom, no new guilt articles. I almost started to breathe again. Then, a notification pinged from a mutual friend, a link to a GoFundMe titled, "Help Evan and Lena buy their dream home after family betrayal." The photo showed them smiling in front of a beige apartment complex. The caption read, "After being disowned by family for asking for help, we're trying to build our future from scratch. Every dollar helps a new baby find a real home." Below that, our wealthy sister refused to help us even though she owns multiple properties. The word wealthy made my stomach twist. I had a city condo, half mortgaged, and this cottage, also mortgaged. That was it. I wasn't a millionaire. I was just responsible. Within 48 hours, they'd raised $500, mostly from distant relatives and sympathetic strangers who didn't know the truth. I called Eli again. "You can send a cease and desist," he said, "but suing them will cost you more peace than money. Document it and move on." So I did, but peace was already a foreign concept. Every night, I scrolled the security camera app, watching the empty deck flicker in black and white. I slept with my phone on the nightstand, sound on high, waiting for the chime that meant motion detected. It came one night, a false alarm, just a seagull, but it startled me awake. I sat there in the blue glow, whispering to myself, "You did nothing wrong." This time, it sounded a little truer. 4 weeks passed. Enough time for guilt to cool and tension to ferment. The GoFundMe plateaued, then vanished. No calls, no visits, no midnight headlights outside the cottage. For a while, I almost believed it was over. Then, on a Tuesday morning, as I was halfway through a code review and halfway through my second coffee, an email popped up. Subject: "Congratulations on your pending property transfer." From Harbor Title and Escrow Services. I stared at it, the way you stare at a wasp that might sting. The body read, "Dear Ms. Whitaker, please review the attached documents for the deed transfer of the property at 19 Seaside Lane to Evan Whitaker and Lena Donovan. Kindly sign to complete the family transfer and confirm payment of the transfer tax. Congratulations." I blinked. Once, twice. Then I called the number listed in the email. "Hi," I said as evenly as I could manage. "There's been a mistake. I didn't authorize any transfer." The woman on the other end sounded chipper, unbothered. "Oh, our records show this was a family gift. We received documentation from your brother Evan, along with a witness statement from your parents, Harold and Marianne Whitaker. It notes your verbal agreement to transfer the property as a wedding present." My heart started to pound so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Verbal agreement?" I repeated. "That's not legally binding, and I never agreed to any of that." She hesitated now. "Well, that's why we require your signature to finalize it. It's just formalizing what's already been decided." "It hasn't been decided," I said sharply. "It's fraud. I want copies of everything you were sent, immediately." Her tone shifted to professional caution. "I'll escalate this to our legal department right away, Ms. Whitaker." "Good, do that," I said, and hung up. The first person I called next was Eli, my lawyer friend. When I told him, he swore softly. "They actually tried to file a title transfer?" "They forged witness statements," I said. "My parents signed off." There was silence. Then, "Claire, this is serious. You need a real estate attorney, someone who deals with fraud." That evening, I sat across from Ruth Hale, a lawyer who looked like she'd stared down every kind of liar and never flinched. Her office smelled like old paper and cold coffee, the smell of bad family histories. "They submitted what's called an affidavit of gift intent," Ruth said after reviewing the documents. "Your brother claimed you verbally promised the house. He provided supporting letters from your parents saying they witnessed that conversation." "At that dinner," I muttered. "Of course." Ruth nodded grimly. "There's also a doctor's note from Lena stating that housing instability is affecting her pregnancy and, wait, screenshots of your texts." She turned her monitor toward me. There, highlighted in yellow, was my message to Evan weeks earlier. "I want to help, and I'll give you a generous gift." "Taken out of context," Ruth said, reading my expression. "They're trying to weaponize kindness." She leaned back, steepling her fingers. "You need to file a police report, immediately." My stomach twisted. "Against my own brother?" Her voice softened. "Against the man who tried to steal your property through deception. Family or not." The next 48 hours were a blur of paperwork and disbelief. At the police station, the detective who took my statement looked tired but sympathetic. "You'd be amazed," he said. "Usually it's adult kids trying to take advantage of elderly parents, but siblings? Yeah, we see it too." I handed over the affidavit copies, the fake witness letters, the screenshots. Each one felt like a small betrayal captured in ink. When I left, I sat in my car for a long time, just breathing. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Then my phone rang, a blocked number. I answered, Evan. His voice came through raw, furious. You got the police involved? Are you insane? You're ruining my life over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I said quietly. You tried to steal my house. I wasn't stealing, I was formalizing what you promised. I never promised you anything. Mom and Dad heard you. Mom and Dad lied, I snapped. Or they convinced themselves of something that never happened. There was a pause, then, you're choosing paperwork over family. You'll regret this. He hung up before I could reply. Mom called next, crying so hard I could barely understand her. How could you do this? He's your brother. He made a mistake. He committed fraud, Mom. He was desperate. You could have talked to us instead of calling the police. You lied for him, I said. You signed a legal statement saying you witnessed an agreement that never happened. We interpreted what you meant, she whispered. You said you'd help. Helping isn't handing over a deed, I said. An interpretation doesn't erase the law. You've changed, she said bitterly. Money's made you cold. No, I said. Money made you see me differently. She hung up. A week later, I sat in a courtroom that smelled faintly of bleach and old wood. Ruth beside me, Evan across the aisle, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. My parents sat behind him, tight-lipped, eyes full of accusation. The judge flipped through the file, unimpressed. So, Mr. Whitaker, you submitted documents claiming your sister agreed to transfer her property as a gift. Evan mumbled something about family understanding. The judge turned to my parents. And you two signed statements saying you witnessed this agreement? Dad's voice was low. We witnessed her say she'd help them. Did she say she'd give them the house? The judge asked. Silence. I'll take that as a no, the judge said dryly. This is attempted fraud, and frankly, you're all fortunate Ms. Whitaker isn't pursuing criminal charges. He signed the restraining order, 500 feet between Evan and me, between his ambitions and my walls. Then he looked at my parents. Filing false affidavits is a crime. Consider this a warning. As we left, Evan brushed past me and muttered, Hope you're happy. You destroyed this family. I stopped. No, I said. You destroyed it when you tried to steal from me. Mom was crying again. We'll never forgive you, Claire. Never. I nodded once. You already didn't. And that was it. Years of shared birthdays, holidays, inside jokes, gone with a court stamp and a handful of signatures. That night, back at the cottage, I opened every window and let the ocean air in. The wind smelled clean, unclaimed. The security cameras blinked red along the porch. The locks were new. The deed was safe in its folder. Still, I whispered the same line before bed. You did nothing wrong. This time it sounded true. But I didn't sleep, because truth doesn't comfort you when the people you love have turned it into evidence. 3 weeks later, the world had gone eerily still. No new emails, no knocks at my door, just the quiet hum of normal life pretending nothing had happened. But silence after a storm is never peace. It's wreckage settling. I still checked the cameras every night. My phone pinged at every gust of wind, every stray seagull shadow that crossed the lens. My therapist, Dr. Melton, told me that vigilance was a symptom of trauma, not control. It's what happens, she said, when your trust gets burglarized. She wasn't wrong, because that's exactly what it felt like, being robbed in slow motion by people who still called themselves my family. The next shock didn't come from the beach or the city, but from Facebook. A cousin tagged me in a post I hadn't seen, a picture of a newborn wrapped in a pink blanket. Welcome, baby Emma. Congratulations to Evan and Lena. My thumb hovered over the image, a tiny face, a name I'd never heard them discuss. Emma. For a moment, the air in my chest collapsed. I wasn't tagged, of course. My name didn't belong near theirs anymore. But a mutual friend sent me the message privately. Did you see? You're an aunt. The word aunt felt foreign, like a title I'd been fired from but forgot to take off my resume. Later that day, another cousin messaged me. They moved to Indiana. Lena's parents took them in. Your parents helped with expenses. Sold part of their retirement, apparently. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed, "Thanks for letting me know," and deleted it before sending. Therapy helped me name things. Grief, guilt, rage. But naming them didn't mean they left. They just sat in corners like ghosts waiting to be acknowledged. Some nights I dreamt of Evan on the deck again, measuring tape in hand, saying, "You'll regret this." And in the dream, I always handed him the keys. Every time I woke up sweating, I'd check the cameras again, just to remind myself that I hadn't. Noah, my boyfriend, was patient in the way people are when they've seen someone shatter quietly. One evening, he found me sitting on the kitchen floor, surrounded by paperwork and unopened mail. "Hey," he said gently, "you don't have to guard your life every second." "I know," I said, "but if I don't, who will?" He crouched beside me, picked up one of the envelopes. "You did the right thing, Claire. They crossed a line. You didn't push them there. They sprinted." I nodded, but tears blurred everything anyway. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like losing, with better paperwork. He laughed softly, kissed my temple. That's therapy material right there. Weeks became months. Summer crept in again, unapologetic, warm, and too bright. I spent weekends at the cottage, painting shutters and fixing the railing Evan once leaned on when he told me he'd never be the responsible one. I found the old paint samples they'd left that day. Seafoam, dove gray, cream. I threw them away. Jennifer, my neighbor, still waved every morning. Sometimes she'd stop by with iced tea. "How's the piece?" she'd ask. "Learning it," I'd say. She'd smile. "That's harder than earning it." She wasn't wrong. In September, Ruth called. My lawyer. "Just checking in," she said. "Everything quiet?" "So far." "Good. Keep all your documentation. These things have a way of resurfacing after a few years, when guilt starts rewriting memory." I laughed dryly. "You sound like my therapist." "Experience," she said. "Family fraud doesn't die easily." After we hung up, I stood on the deck and watched the tide. It kept erasing its own footprints, wave after wave. I envied that. Mom called once. Only once. Her voice was older, rasped with tears she hadn't earned. "Evan and Lena named the baby Emma Claire," she said softly. I froze. "What?" They said it was to remember that family is complicated, not broken." I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. "That's not comfort, Mom. That's irony." "I just thought you should know," she whispered. "She looks like you." That night I went for a walk along the sand. The moon painted the water silver, and the house looked smaller than I remembered. I stood where Evan had once stood, measuring tape in hand, and whispered to the sea, "You'll never measure me again." Holidays came and went. I spent Thanksgiving with Noah's family, Christmas alone at the cottage. The waves were louder in winter, angry, unapologetic, almost human. I left my phone on the table that night and didn't check the cameras once. Because maybe peace isn't the absence of threat. Maybe it's when you finally stop expecting one. When the year ended, I wrote a letter I didn't send, to Evan, to Lena, to my parents. It wasn't an apology, it was closure. "You didn't just ask for something unreasonable. You tried to take it when I said no. That's the moment you stopped being family and started being strangers with my last name. I don't hate you, but I can't trust you either. Trust doesn't survive forged signatures. Maybe one day, when Emma is old enough, she'll ask what happened. I'll tell her I loved her parents, but they mistook generosity for surrender. I hope she learns the difference." I folded it, sealed it, and locked it away in the drawer with the deed. Dr. Melton once told me, "The end of family illusions feels like the end of gravity, but you'll learn to stand anyway." She was right. The beach house is quiet now. Sometimes the silence still hurts, but it's my silence. It answers only to me. And in the mornings, when the sun hits the porch just right, I can almost hear it say what my brother never could. "You did nothing wrong." I whisper back, "I know." And for the first time in a year, it finally sounds true.